welcome everyone. I think we're going to kick things off. My name is Nicole Davis, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to our third remote creativity meetup. And we've got another good session here going on. So this is run out of Berklee Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship. And we were founded 5 years ago to promote the startup mindset throughout the Berklee community with students, staff, faculty, alumni, and the industry. And when we shifted online, we started thinking about how we could convene some conversations around some of the topics that BerkleeICE often discusses. And so obviously creativity and collaboration look a little bit different now that we are all online, and we're all creating in different ways. And so today we have a couple of great topics. George Howard, my collaborator in this, music business professor, entrepreneur.
That's something, I just got a message. The host has stopped something. Did I do something? I'm sorry I interrupted you, particularly when you were talking about me.
Oh, I was gonna pass the mic. Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yep. I was trying to multitask, but you know, it's tricky. Even in this digital world, earlier, I helped my daughter make a soup while also participating in a group discussion and building a Lego set. So I should have been able to do this one small digital task.
I'm sure you did. It just freaked me out.
No, we're good. Yeah, so we've got a bunch of panelists, and George, who's going to talk a little bit about his latest article in Forbes, sort of building on all of his time in the industry, and then the last couple months that we've spent shut in. So George is going to speak, and then Tagliaferro, who's the BerkleeICE grad fellow, will lead a discussion with Shelbie Rassler, Sage Jepson and Mia Goodman. They're all conservatory students, and Shelbie was the organizer of the virtual orchestra, 1.8 million views that my parents and the entire world have fallen in love with, and we're going to dig into some of the behind the scenes of that as well. So I'm excited for the conversation today. Before I hand it over to George, I just want to mention a couple things, which I'm going to put some links in once George starts talking, so I don't have to multitask. We have a Slack where we've been putting a lot of the information related to BerkleeICE, related to these sessions. As we continue into the summer, we're going to be doing more startup focused work within BerkleeICE and connecting to a lot of our global partners, our global presence as well. So if you want to get involved, if you want to stay up to date, please check that out. This session is being recorded, so just a heads up. We'll be able to share that out in the future as well. And then lastly, if you know any teens that are looking for something interesting digitally to do this summer, we also have a high school summer program, and so I will also share that out afterwards. So we've got a ton of good stuff coming up into the summer. This is probably our last remote creativity meetup, at least for the semester. And the spring semester is about to wind up, and then we'll be focused on summer. So stay tuned. There's a lot of good stuff still to come. So George, I'm going to tee you up if that's all right.
Yeah.
I know that the way that we're creating and consuming music is different now. I don't know that we've necessarily figured it out. It's certainly changed for me. I've been listening to a lot more records because I'm here and I can listen to them, and it's, you know, it's something to like do and feel, which feels really important. So talk to us a little bit about how music is being consumed and what we're doing with it.
Great. I will. Before I do, I want to thank you, my partner in crime, on this. I mean, you've carried such an incredible weight through this, and more than I have a little bit of insight into it because we work closely, but most people just have no idea all that you're doing every day for these students in the midst of trying to take care of your family and everything else. So it's just such an honor to work with you, and people don't thank people enough. So I just wanted to kind of publicly thank you for all that you've done. All right. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen in theory here, and I've got a let's see if this will work. A PowerPoint slide that I put together around the article that Nicole just mentioned that Forbes just ran. I think this is working. Yep. So the impetus of this was thinking through. I want to make sure everybody still loading. Please work. Is that working? Can everybody? I can't see anything. So people see my screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. So the job to be done is a management theory that Clayton Christensen, who's sort of one of my personal mentors and hearers, created. He's the same person that wrote the book, The Innovator's Dilemma. And he wrote this some time ago, and I lean on it a lot in terms of trying to categorize how to approach various problems and help companies and be a good teacher, et cetera. And again, the main thesis is that customers hire products to fill a certain job. So this originally appeared in a MIT review article way back in 2007, but Christensen, unlike many others, his ideas are very, very durable. And as he says here, most companies segment their markets by customer demographics or product characteristics, but he's positing that simply a job to be done is seeking to hire the best product or service to do it, and marketers should adopt that perspective. Obviously, my main interest these days is how artists can have a sustainable career and living in this crazy time. So he put some examples forward that I've highlighted here, and he seems a little trivial now, but he started with milkshakes, and he talked about they actually went to people who would buy a milkshake and interviewed them. He said, can you tell me why you were needing to get this milkshake at this time? And so most of them, it turned out, bought their milkshakes for the same reasons. They faced a long, boring commute and needed something to keep that extra hand busy and to make the commute more interesting. They weren't yet hungry, but knew they'd be hungry by 10 a.m. They wanted to consume something now that would stave off hunger until noon, and they faced constraints. They were in a hurry. They were wearing work clothes, and they had at most one free hand. So the thesis being like, yeah, you buy a milkshake because, like, who doesn't like milkshakes? But there's a deeper layer of it than that. And so he says, the researcher asked what other products the customer might hire rather than a milkshake. It turned out that it was milkshakes that was really the one. Bagels were too dry, cream cheese or jam, there's sticky fingers, gooey steering wheels, donuts, the sugar crash happens, bananas don't last long enough for the boring commute, but a milkshake, because it's viscous or thick. Only business people call milkshakes viscous, by the way, right? And then sipping the viscosity through thin straws, their hands were clean, their stomachs were satisfied. And so, like, once you kind of get this in your head, it allows you to really understand why people utilize projects in a much more multi-dimensional level. So what is that kind of job to be done for music? So as I said, I wrote this article, this was just a week ago, almost to the day. My editor, as they want to do, to change my title. It used to be, it's time to rethink the job to be done of music during COVID-19. They didn't think that was clickbaity enough, but so they changed it to how do we use music? Fine, okay, I know full well that I tend to use words that only I apparently understand. And if we think about the kind of historic job to be done for music, we can think of two things that people have used it for a long time. One, just like milkshakes, apparently, commuting. People get in their car, they're driving. Music serves a very, very specific role and job to be done when you're driving in your car. It can kind of be there in the background. For all the reasons we think of. Whereas you can't or you shouldn't be watching TV while you're driving in your car, right? Same thing with offices. People in cubicles, will put their headphones on and stream music because that it serves a very specific function that other things that you might do in your cubicle just won't do as well. Again, you shouldn't have kind of a TV on, you can't be playing, it's fairly obvious. So from my article, I wrote that the knee-jerk assumption of many in the music industry was that the stay-at-home order, from COVID, would result in more streaming of music, but that's not been true. The numbers dropped 7.6% in the initial weeks of the quarantine, and they continue to drop. And if you view this drop through a job to be done lens, you see that consumers hire music for making the commute, or hiring music for drowning out the noise from their coworkers and the cubicle. And now that those things are gone, streaming numbers are going down proportionately. So when we try to go, okay, so what is the new job to be done in music? And this is obviously a work in progress. One trap that I see people falling into a lot is this idea of skeuomorphism. And skeuomorphic design thinking is, I'm going to take something that was an offline tool, an offline activity, and I'm going to port it online. So the example that I have on my screen there, up until really a couple of years ago, if you opened your Apple Notes app, this is what you would see. You would see this rendering, this artifact of an offline version of a notepad online, which is stupid, right? You know, lines on the notepad made a lot of sense if you're handwriting, so that you keep your, you know, handwriting kind of horizontal. That's not an issue when you're typing, or at least not on any keyboard that I've ever used. I don't tend to type on an angle, but the thinking, such as it is behind it, was, well, this will make people feel more comfortable. But what it does is it limits the ability to actually come up with something new. If you look at the new Apple Notes, it's not the same. They finally moved away from this, and Apple Notes is still kind of a crappy product. There are many other better products that did not embrace skeuomorphism, but have reinvented the notepad. My favorite is one called Bear, and I like Bear because it utilizes, I can link notes to notes. I can put hyperlinks right in very easily. Like it's using the technology to re-envision rather than taking an old technology and trying to replicate. So when we think in terms of where the music needs to go, one useful way to kind of get at the job to be done is to think in terms of kind of collisions, right? So a couple nights ago, Willie Nelson did the 420 kind of festival, which was essentially him and one of his kids sitting on the ranch looking bored and likely stoned, and then kind of passing the camera to other musicians looking vaguely bored and vaguely stoned, playing songs. And I love me some Willie. I love me some music. It was not great, right? And in no way did it replicate the experience of going to see Willie at the ranch or whatever. It was a poor skeuomorphic version of this. At roughly the same time, there was an artist who did a show on Fortnite. He's not the first, but you know, Weezer's done one, and Marshmello did one, but this artist did it, and it blew up. And it was because of the idea of, okay, the gamers, and gaming obviously is going through the roof during the quarantine, thinking that way, thinking about how people are going to consume music and use music differently is really, really important. What I'm beginning, and this is certainly a work in progress for me, but what's beginning to emerge in my head is that when you think about live performances and going to see shows with music, there is, of course, the kind of the two-dimensional aspect of that, which is, okay, here's some artists that I love on a stage, and here I am in the crowd watching them. That's very two-dimensional. And you would think from a skeuomorphic perspective, you could just replicate that online. What's missing is that sort of ambient third dimension, which is when you're standing there in a crowd with a friend or significant other, there's this sort of ambient relationship that occurs where you'll squeeze your boyfriend's hand or whatever when they play the song that you love. You'll whisper in their ear going, oh yeah, this song. You'll sing along. And that's really, really hard to replicate when you've got, you know, Margot Price on her couch in Nashville and me in my couch in Marblehead by myself. It doesn't work. So I do look to Twitch, for instance, the video game platform, and what they're hinting at, and they haven't gotten it quite right yet, but is that kind of third dimension where even while people are watching performers play on live, they've got the sidebar, the stream going down the side where people are kind of communicating. There's something there. It's not yet fleshed out, but we need to stop thinking from this kind of one to many. In other words, I'm on stage, broadcasting out, right? Or many to many, which is we're all on a Zoom chat kind of talking at the same time. There's something in between that. And the same thing is true for education. You know, as an academic myself, I'm struggling deeply with the skeuomorphism of, okay, well now my classes are me just kind of sitting at my desk or whatever, talking to my students while they're lounging in their pajamas on their couch. It's not the same, right? The answers aren't there, but this does provide a real opportunity for us to kind of invent some new things, which is great, right? It is maybe the only silver lining of this nightmare. To invent it, you need to be thinking in terms of what the job to be done, being conscious that the job is changing, and think about collisions. Sorry, I'm just trying to get back to my. Okay, think about collisions and think about ways in which we don't just try to replicate the old ways of doing things online rather than off. So that was the thrust of the article, and I do think it's something that can help sort of guide thinking as we all try to figure this out together. But that's kind of what I got.
Thanks, George.
Sure.
I know that you'll need to jump in just a minute. I want to let the folks watching know that there's like a Q&A thing. So if you do have any questions, feel free to throw them in there or raise your skeuomorphic hand and we'll call on you. You know, George, and I know we're going to get into this later, the one point where I did have sort of like, I don't know, that moment of like sort of serendipitousness and fun watching something was, and I don't know if anybody else was watching this, was a few weeks ago, Courtney Barnett and Lucius were doing a live thing with a bunch of other artists. I think Bedouin joined that one, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm transposing too. Anyways, some amazing artists, but they were performing and they were doing Tambourine Man, which it was funny seeing like all of the millennials be like, this is an amazing song. Like, who wrote this? What's the name of this song? But then in the window, all of a sudden this person arrives wearing a mask and gloves and a hat and with a tambourine. And it was Fred Armisen, who apparently is their neighbor. And then he like came on with a guitar and was like playing along. And like, those are the same moments in a show, right? Like when you're in a show and you're like, oh my God, like there's that cool person that like, definitely, I didn't know those two people knew each other. And that person's cool and funny. And this is cool and funny. And everybody, even though like I couldn't experience it with other fans, everybody you knew was kind of like experiencing that moment that like, you know, and I think that those are the moments, but like, you know, how do you replicate that and how do you
replicated it? I mean, I think you kind of underline my point. I mean, that's a collision, right? That's something that's an unexpected thing where two disciplines kind of, I know Fred Armisen is a musician as well, but most people know him as sort of an actor and a comic. And so colliding that way. And I think that's always a good thing for musicians to do. Musicians tend to kind of verticalize themselves too much. And if they would think in terms of, you know, what is the job to be done? I think of one of my favorite musicians, Zoe Keating, who's also a data scientist, right? And so she's able to talk about, you know, the music that she composes, but also through the filter of sort of data science, and that opens her up to a whole new world. I'd be remiss in not talking, and I haven't had the pleasure of meeting either Sage or Mia or Shelbie, but the work that you've done is a great example of the non-skeuomorphic thing, right? What you did was, sure, it's artists collaborating, but the way in which you did it, the technology that you did it, is vastly different than if you had just said, okay, here I am going to sing this song. You use technology as a way to enhance rather than replicate. And I think that's a big point. So I am so impressed, you know, by what you all have done. And I'm grateful for the fact that you did it and you're taking the time now to explain how you've done and the amount of people that you've impacted positively. I hope you take great pride in what you've done. It's really remarkable.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, and I think, you know, one of the jobs to be done right now is like feeling feelings as well. And I know, you know, for a fact that that's something that your video helped a lot of people do, because I think a lot of people are just kind of like cramming those feelings down, because like once you like open it up, there's a lot of feelings there, and it's you know, it can be difficult to kind of let yourself do that. And that's always been a job for music, right? Like allowing yourself to feel. But I think in particular, like the authenticity and sort of just like the courage to do that and to like embrace the emotional aspect of it as well, because that is definitely, I mean, people need sort of the ability and space to feel emotions, because we're like just in all of these rooms with all of the same people or all of the not any people. So, you know, having that as a vehicle to feel has been massive as well. George, I know you got to jump. So
thank you all so much. Thank you for having me. I wish I could stay, but thank you for all the work that you continue to do, and all of you. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, George. See ya.
Bye.
So I think I'll pass the mic then over to Bree, and let's talk a little bit about, you know, the technology and the emotions behind this, and what it was like to create it, what it was like to be a part of it. Yeah, Bree, you want to take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Totally. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bree Tagliaferro, and as Nicole mentioned earlier, I'm a Postmaster's Fellow with the Office of Institute of Creative Entrepreneurship. So I'm really happy to be able to bring Mia, Sage, and Shelbie together, who are all current students at the Boston Conservatory, because I actually graduated from the conservatory last year and play the cello. So as Nicole was mentioning, Shelbie's video for the song What the World Needs Now really connected with so many people on so many different levels. And as a graduate of the Boston Conservatory, I really felt that as well. So we want to talk with Shelbie, who created the video, arranged the music, and also appears in the video, as well as Sage and Mia, who appear singing in the video. So we thought it'd be cool to show a little bit of the video first. So I'm going to share that.
Sweet love, it's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now. Love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains in the sun. There are oceans and rivers.
Okay, so just to give you guys a little window into what that looks like, and I hope the sound was okay on that. We'll also share the link after the video, so if you haven't been able to see it, you can check it out. So the video now has 1.8 million views on YouTube, so it's definitely reached a huge audience. So that in itself shows what an impact this video has had for people. So Shelbie, can you talk to us a little bit about your process for making this video and why you made it in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Shelbie. I'm a senior composition major at the Boston Conservatory. Thank you so much for having me be part of this panel. Yeah, so the idea for this video came about actually on the flight home from BOCO. I'm back home in South Florida right now, and that was after we had been told that the rest of our semester would be taking place online. So I, along with all of my friends, were, you know, quite devastated by this news, and I just wanted to figure out a way to kind of bring all of my friends back together and keep the community spirit that we have up in Boston alive while we're all, you know, going through these things and feeling all of the emotions that you mentioned earlier, and you know, just having that desire to want to create something, and you know, not thinking that we're able to. So I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to be able to be part of something. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I sent out a MIDI mock-up track with the full arrangement that I wrote. and sent out some sheet music that everyone recorded their parts to. And then they sent all the videos back to me, and I edited everything and synced up all the audio and all the video and created what you see there and on TV today.
Awesome. So knowing that you also conduct orchestras, which it seems like you've done a few times, I'm curious how that experience of being there in person, feeling the energy of the musicians, conducting in front of all of these people, is that at all similar to the process of making this video and putting all these tracks together? Does it feel really different? If you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, speaking for myself and for other musicians that I've worked with, I think the most just kind of amazing part about making music together is that kind of kinetic energy that you have when you're working with someone, and, you know, you're bouncing ideas off of each other and you're having that dialogue without actually speaking. And I think that that is, you know, at least for me, that's my favorite part about making music, whether that's in a show or, you know, literally improvising together in someone's basement, like all the same, you know, it's that same kind of kinetic energy. And I think that, you know, it's hard when you're doing that alone in your room or outside or wherever you are. You know, you don't have that kind of, you know, other person to bounce those ideas off of. So I wanted to kind of let everyone and the unique qualities that everyone brings to this. I think that's what made it so special, was that everyone, you know, has their own energy that then kind of came together for this. But, you know, for me, putting together the video after everyone had sent in their individual clips, I really did feel that kind of kinetic energy, you know, like rehearsing in an orchestra, or, you know, like being in a chamber ensemble or whatever it is, where, you know, you're hearing layer by layer, the piece kind of coming together and taking shape, and, you know, kind of what I heard in my head was, you know, being assembled piece by piece. So for me as a conductor, that is the feeling of, you know, when I'm rehearsing an orchestra and I'm like, okay, flutes, let's rehearse this. Okay, now we're going to bring in the clarinets. Okay, great, all woodwinds now, you know, that kind of thing. So I think that as, you know, the person who kind of layered that, I was able to feel that kinetic energy. And then I hope that the people who were part of this, were, of course, I'd love to hear from Mia and Sage, to kind of see if they felt that the same way when they were watching the finished product as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Mia and Sage, I think it'd be great if you could talk to us about your role in the video and how that felt for you as performers.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Sage Jepson. I'm a rising musical theater major at the Conservatory. When Shelbie asked me to be a part of this project, we just had heard the news that we were, you know, switching to Zoom University, and it was very devastating. But you know, art fuels me and art fuels my soul. So the fact that there is a project where I got to sing and contribute really kind of flipped my whole mood around this. So she sent out tracks to us. I'm a vocalist, so she sent out tracks, click tracks. We listened in our ear, and she also sent out the full orchestra too, so kind of a mock-up of what it would sound like. And the minute that I heard that, I just started to cry. I felt the energy of our school. I felt the energy of Shelbie, and it just, you know, it's not the same as being in the room, but the fact that we have this platform to create and almost replicate that feeling, it just is unparalleled. So
yeah, first of all, sorry, someone's mowing their lawn really loudly, so if you hear big noise, that's it. But yeah, so Shelbie posted on Facebook. That's how I was like, okay, I'm in. And it was really devastating the first few days of being home. I remember after I called my parents, I love them, but I was like, hey, I don't really want to come home for this long. I thought I'd be home for a week and come back. So I was pretty down in the dumps, and definitely what Sage said, like getting the chance to just actually create something. And it was this sense of like, I didn't want to let people down. Like after I was like, yeah, I'll do it, I thought of there were so many people that were so interested in it. And that really inspired me to, instead of like wallowing, to just like do it. And then seeing the final product was just, it was just beautiful, and it made me really grateful. And this, like seeing the the impact that it's had has just been one of the, I think, certainly like kind of a positive spin on what we're going through right now. And it's been incredible. I was on a run yesterday and I passed by these family friends I haven't seen in years, and they just yelled at me, "We saw your video." So I just thought that's insane. So I'm really grateful to have been a part of this.
Yeah. I think this video really has shown that despite being in all different places in the world, we really can still feel connected to each other. It's just kind of taking a new form. So considering that, these new forms that we have to adapt in digital spaces, Shelbie, could you maybe talk about anything you've learned from this process of creating videos like this? I see you released a second video very recently. So if you have any tips or ideas for people that might be watching that are interested in doing a project like this of their own.
Yeah, most definitely. So I think, the main kind of technical aspects of this project involves sending out some kind of reference track so that everyone is kind of, on the same page at the same time, so to speak. So that is kind of the foundation to everything to create something like this. For me personally, I just sent out sheet music. I sent out a track. I just asked everyone to record their parts. And I think what I love so much about this video specifically is that, you can hear the personality in the soloists, and you can feel who they are as people. And I mean, I know my friends really well, but now that millions of people have seen this, like, I'm so happy that everyone had their own kind of moment to kind of share their spark, so to speak. And so, so yeah, I would recommend letting people have fun with this. It's, at the end of the day, we're all trying to be happy, and we're trying to fill the void of just not being able to be with each other, which is really devastating. So yeah, I think the biggest thing, send out a track, tell your friends to have fun with it, send in your videos, and then I used Logic Pro X and Pro Tools for the sound editing and audio and everything. And I had my friend Dan Santiago as the mix engineer to do the final leveling and all of that. So get yourself a friend who's really good at leveling. And then I did all of the video on Final Cut Pro on my laptop. So those, I'm sure it's possible on many other platforms and other softwares and everything, but that's what I use. And I did an interview with Pro Sound Network about the kind of very detailed step-by-step about everything that I did to create this. So if anyone who's watching is interested in that, we can share the link somehow with you for that. But yeah, that's pretty much the basics of that.
Definitely, that's awesome. So it seems like there's this really important dual function where you want it to be structured enough so that everyone in their different ways of contributing can be part of the same thing, and it's organized, but at the same time you want to give people this freedom to be able to express themselves and really feel like they're an important part of this whole project. And I'm curious, Mia and Sage, as performers, if you felt that this experience allowed you to be more free or more experimental or creative as opposed to an in-person rehearsal or maybe like a choral atmosphere, something like that. So did you feel like it was more freeing to be able to do this on your own and just record it as many times as you wanted to submit to Shelbie?
I think for me, on one hand, it was really nice. It was a little more freeing, but at the same time, there's something really vulnerable about recording your own part in this huge ensemble, but only hearing yourself and then having to listen to it on video. So since we've been, well, for me personally, as a musical theater major, since we've been doing Zoom University, I've had to film a lot of videos. So it's really important. It was really important when I was filming this for Shelbie and then also her second video, which just got released, to kind of just take it for what it was. And that's where the creativity started flowing, when I wasn't it has to be perfect, it has to look great on video. And I think that that's what makes the video so great is, I was on top of my stairs just singing, and the stakes were pretty low, and it was just really nice.
Yeah, I'm actually sitting exactly where I filmed my video for What the World Needs Now. And I actually got to do it with my brother, which was such a special gift to share this. You know, it's devastating, but it's also a great time to celebrate like family and love and art and everything. So it was very freeing for me to just sit here at my kitchen table, riff to the sky, because Shelby asked me to do some cool riffs at the end. And I mean, oh, my dog's barking. It's not the same as being in a class and bouncing off ideas with artists, but you actually get to kind of take a look at yourself and almost refine in a way, but also with not having high stakes for yourself. Like it's okay to just come as you are and share your soul through a video. And that's actually a really beneficial skill to have, especially as a musical theater artist or as a vocalist who will be sending in video audition tapes for the rest of my life. So I'm really learning how to make myself look authentic and also, you know, look good on the camera.
Definitely. So we actually had a question from Frank Thomas that we wanted to touch on. And Frank asked if there are any thoughts on some of the real-time music collaboration products on the market now. So I don't know, Shelby, if anybody else, if Nicole even.